The voicemail wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It had been deleted years ago, wiped from the system, overwritten, forgotten. But when the technician pulled the archived data from a corrupted server, one audio file remained untouched, uncorrupted, like it had been waiting. When he pressed play, there was silence at first, then breathing, slow, uneven, and then a voice, barely a whisper, said, "He told me no one would ever find me." That call was made by a woman who had been missing for 22 years, and until that moment, nobody even knew she had tried to call for help. People in the town had stopped saying her name out loud, not because they forgot, but because remembering felt pointless. She had vanished without a trace, without a struggle, without even the smallest sign that something had gone wrong. One day she was there, laughing with her sister over burnt toast, complaining about work, planning a weekend trip, and the next, she was just gone. The police treated it like most disappearances at the time. They asked the usual questions, checked the usual places. They assumed the usual explanations. Maybe she ran away. Maybe she met someone. Maybe she just needed space. But her family knew better. She wasn't the kind of person who disappeared without a word. She wasn't the kind of person who left people behind. And yet, that's exactly what it looked like. The last person to see her alive wasn't a close friend or family member. It was a gas station clerk who barely remembered her face. He only recalled her because she had seemed distracted, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. He said she kept glancing over her shoulder, gripping her phone tighter than normal, like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. When investigators reviewed that statement years later, something about it felt wrong. Not suspicious, just incomplete. Because back then, no one thought to ask what she was listening to. No one checked her call records deeply enough, and no one realized that just minutes before she vanished, she had dialed a number that didn't belong to anyone in her contacts. A number that would later be erased. Her house told a quiet story. The door wasn't forced. The windows were locked. Nothing was broken. Her bag was still there, sitting exactly where she had left it. Inside it, her wallet, her keys, everything except her phone. That was the only thing missing. At the time, it didn't seem like much. Phones were small, easy to lose, easy to forget. But now looking back, it felt deliberate. Because if someone had taken her, they didn't just want her gone. They wanted her voice gone too. They wanted to make sure there was no record, no trace, no way for her to reach out. Except, she did. And somehow, that call survived. The case went cold faster than anyone expected. Leads dried up. Witnesses forgot details. Time blurred everything into something vague and unreachable. Her family kept pushing, kept asking questions, kept searching for anything, but eventually, even hope starts to feel heavy. Years passed. Birthdays came and went. Holidays became quieter. Her room stayed untouched for a long time, until it didn't. Because at some point, people have to keep living, even when something inside them refuses to move on. And somewhere out there, the person responsible continued living too, unnoticed, unquestioned, free. It wasn't a detective who reopened the case. It wasn't a new witness or a sudden confession. It was a glitch, a system failure in an old telecom archive that forced technicians to recover data that had been marked as lost decades ago. That's when they found the file. That it didn't have her name on it. It didn't have a label that made sense. Just a string of numbers and a timestamp that didn't match any known record. But when they traced the number, it led back to her missing phone. The same phone that was never recovered. Listening to the voicemail felt wrong, not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was so quiet, too quiet, like it wasn't meant to be heard, like it was recorded in a place where sound itself was dangerous. Her voice was barely recognizable at first. Weak, shaking. She wasn't crying, but you could hear something worse than that. A kind of controlled fear. The kind that comes when someone knows that any noise could be the last one they ever make. And then she said something that changed everything. She said a name. The name didn't mean anything at first. It wasn't in her contacts. It wasn't in her social circle. It wasn't connected to her job, her neighborhood, or her past. It was just a name. But when investigators dug deeper, they found something unsettling. That name had appeared once before in a completely different case. Another disappearance, another woman, same region, same pattern, same silence. That case had gone cold to . And just like before, no one had been charged. The breakthrough didn't come from evidence, it came from a mistake. A retired officer, reviewing old files out of curiosity, noticed something small, something that had been overlooked for years. In both cases, there was one person who had been questioned, briefly. and then cleared without much thought. Someone who didn't seem important at the time, but now, with the voicemail in mind, his presence felt deliberate, because he wasn't just nearby, he was always there when they finally brought him in again. He didn't panic, he didn't deny anything outright, he just listened. Calm/patient. Like he had been expecting this moment for a long time. And then, he smiled. Not nervously, not defensively, just knowingly. Because what no one realized, what no one even considered, was that he had worked in telecommunications years ago. He understood systems, he knew how data could disappear, how records could be altered, how voices could be erased, except one, the one he didn't know about. The truth came out slowly, not in a confession, but in pieces. Evidence that had been buried resurfaced, patterns became clear, connections formed, and eventually, there was no denying it. He had been watching them, both victims, learning their routines, gaining their trust, just enough to get close. And when the moment came, he made sure they vanished without a trace. But he made one mistake. He underestimated her, because even in that moment, trapped, terrified, knowing what was about to happen, she found a way to call, to leave something behind, a whisper, a name, a clue that would survive longer than he ever expected. And decades later, it finally reached someone who was willing to listen. They found what was left of her not long after. Not far from where he had always been, not far from where everyone thought to look but never looked deeply enough. Her family finally got answers, not the kind they wanted, but the kind they had waited for, the kind that turned silence into something heavier, something final. And somewhere, in an old server that should have erased everything, her voice still exists, still whispering, still waiting. He told me no one would ever find me,